Hello and welcome to a video that many of you hopefully will find very interesting. It's a video that I was going to make part of the Rolemaster deep dive, but then I decided this needs a little video all of itself. Although it very much does have Rolemaster links in it. As I go on, you'll understand why it's got a separate video. So, this is one of these awkward videos whereby a GM that thinks he knows it all will probably not watch this video and probably learn the most from this video, and a GM that realizes you never stop learning will probably end up watching this video and get the least from this video. So if you're still watching at this point, I'll do my best to help. So, a little bit about myself first. Why do I even qualify to make this video? Okay, some of you know I have produced several games before in the past. Those who are currently playing my latest computer game on Steam may know who I am. But besides that, the important bit is, look, I started GMing in 1980. Yeah, that's 40 years of GMing. Lots of experience. But look, let's get things right. I'm not a master. I'm far from it. I'm still learning. And the moment you think you don't need to learn anymore in anything in life is never a good move. One of the good things at the moment is because I'm doing this online role quests, I get to watch myself back. Yeah, lots of learning, but that's life. Let's keep learning. So what's this video about? Well, the number one golden rule I always try to instill on players and other people who ask me about GMing is, look, everybody seems to fall into this same trap. They buy a game, be it a board game or a role-playing game or whatever, and suddenly the writing inside that game becomes gospel, and people start learning it and quoting rules and being rules lawyers, and they completely miss the point. Now, even like in Dungeons and Dragons Basic Edition, like right at the very first pages, and in most role-play games it says the same. It says these rules are basically a framework. The GM needs to make his own decisions, and wherever the GM says goes. And right at the very beginning of any kind of game, even when like before role-playing games, when it was mainly just wargaming, it's a constant evolution of people looking at a rule system and deciding how it best fits. And if it doesn't quite fit, make changes. That's fine. But in nowadays, and I see an awful lot on the internet, looking on forums and things, it just becomes a mass of people saying, but it says on page 52, subquote 4, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, look, let's roll back a minute. So if you go and buy, say, I don't know, Zombicide, nice, great board game. You sit there, you play it. These are the rules. Players get very much set in this mindset of, I'm not allowed to change the rules. But then, this is the funny part. You go buy a magazine, and a magazine publishes some, I don't know, rule system or addition or supplement or something they've decided to create for the game. Or the publishers themselves, the publishers decide, I'm going to set up a new book that is going to cover some other area. And suddenly, that's fine. As if the people in this magazine that you've just bought have some kind of golden pen that means that because they wrote it down and stuck it in their magazine, that's now absolutely fine to play. But if you wanted to do that yourself, that's not fine. Take it from me, as somebody that's published stuff and writes stuff all the time. Every one of you out there, if you're watching this right now, you are just as capable of writing something that could be published on a website. Say, go publish it on a website. And because you've published it on a website or whatever it is, it now becomes fine for people to play. So keep that in your head. There's no golden pen, okay? All games are there to be expanded and thought upon. Don't get yourself confined to this little rule set box that comes with a game. It's the wrong way to look at a game. And one of the reasons why I was going to cover this in Rolemaster is because Rolemaster is a fantastic system of breaking all of those mindsets about rules, because it throws so many optional rules at you that actually completely contradict every other rule it's setting. And they literally say in their companions, look, if you include this rule, then really you better include this rule, this rule, this rule, and don't do this rule, this rule, this rule, because it'll just break. And that's the way you've got to look at things. You got to say, right, okay, if I'm going to add stuff to a game, do I break it? Does it make something overpowered, underpowered? And yeah, the stuff you get in the box is usually been the most play-tested rules. There's no reason why you can't play test and change things yourselves. Don't be confined. Next bit I want to talk about really is, look, they're games, and by the fact that they're games, they're flawed in many ways. They're not real life, and that's a problem. It's a very big problem when you're designing a game and when you're actually GMing a game. And that is, look, armor and weapons and things, they don't work anything like what you see in a role-playing game. That's not how they function. You can't sit there and go, okay, padded armor is armor class 1 or 2 or whatever it is. Chainmail is armor class 5. That's not how armor works. Weapons don't work the same as like that either. You can't suddenly say, okay, right, well, because this guy has got some wooden spear with a bit of flint on the end that does d6 damage, that he is capable of going up to somebody in full plate and just stabbing him through the chest repeatedly with his flint weapon. It just doesn't work the way that they have it in books. And they have stupid things like they go, okay, well, we're going to make plate mail so encumbering you can't really move around. It's like, you can tumble in plate mail. You can do all sorts of crazy things in plate mail. Yes, it weighs. I've actually run a 10k run in chainmail, full heavy chainmail. It's not that heavy because you're wearing it. And also, I mean, don't want to give too much about my personal background, but yeah, okay, I played American football as well as doing other crazy things for many years. And you just get trained to do stuff. You hit the deck, you get back. I played martial arts, judo. You hit the deck, before you've even hit the deck, you're back on your feet. If you're trained to do something, things take no time. They're instinctual. They become muscle memory reflexes. It's just things that just happen. So to say that, like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, you've been knocked to the ground, your armor weighs so much, but come on, it's just rubbish. If you were a trained warrior in full plate, you can tumble. Yeah, you can get knocked down, but unless you're actually pinned down and somebody's laying on top of you, which we'll come to that in a minute, a lot of these things, you will just be instinctive muscle memory. You will roll and get back to some kind of semblance of defense. Unless you're stunned, and we'll come to things like that in a moment, then it's just not the way the real life combat works. And next we'll go on to the next big bugbear about role-playing games and the way that they've developed, and that's hit points. This imaginary thing called hit points. Yeah, they don't exist, by the way, people. It kind of evolved from when you're starting off right back in the 70s, where everything was wargaming, and you're trying to depict a unit of, say, 100 men, and you're trying to represent some kind of casualty thing on there, and you think, okay, well, I need to kind of not just say this unit is functional or not functional, which some rule systems do. You know, you just make them quite simple, but you want to kind of have some kind of levels of non-functionality. And when Gary Gygax and that created Dungeons and Dragons, hit points is something they introduced, because to do anything more complicated than that about individual person, one person, gets a bit difficult to get around your head. How do you decide whether or not somebody's still functioning or not? Let's just give them a look at hit points. But I mean, you go to your local hospital now, and you go walk into the E&R department where everybody's there. In the UK, we call it E&R. I'm not quite sure what you call it in other countries, but your emergency department whereby you go if you've got an injury or broken, wherever it is, and you sit there and they come along and they do a triage assessment on you to work out whether or not you need to be seen straight away or whether you can sit there for a while. But you go in there now, go there today, except for COVID-19, obviously. And people don't have hit points above their head. And I bet you it is impossible for you to walk around and decide what hit points people are on. It's just not a thing. You can't look at somebody who's injured in an accident on the road and think, oh, he's got like 20% of hit points left. They just don't exist. And that's something that causes a lot of problems in role-playing games. It causes problems when it gets to extremes like, oh yeah, this guy falls off a 100-foot cliff and you take 10d6 damage, wherever it is, but because I've got 200 hit points, I don't really care. I just bounce. I'll carry on fighting just as effective as I was before. Now, I'm not saying that you can fall 100 foot and survive. There have been people that have fallen a lot higher distances and survived. But believe me, if I fell 100 foot and I survived, I would be standing there probably amazed for several rounds, just checking myself again and again, thinking, I am all in one piece here. My legs are not shattered. Oh my god, how did I manage that? Especially if I didn't like try and break my fall on the way down by, hitting the edges of the cliff and trying to slow. But yeah, things like hit points really just make a mess of stuff. Now, okay, Rolemaster, which is one of the reasons why this video was made, does some interesting things. It creates a critical table. I mean, RuneQuest and I think other systems have tried to do something similar. But Rolemaster becomes very clever in the way that it deals with damage. And that's, you're more looking at yourself to say, right, what is wrong? Like you would do in real life. What is wrong with me right now? Why can't I fight? Is my leg broken? Are my muscles hurt? What physically is wrong with me? That makes me incapable of fighting. Now, one of the things that, is actually the biggest killer in fighting usually, strangely enough, most people don't realize, and they actually try to do medieval fighting in armor or any other kind of like contact sport, I suppose, is fatigue. Fatigue is a massive killer. When you just get too tired in combat, I know it sounds strange, but you literally just give up the will to keep defending yourself. You just let the opponent kill you. Being fit in combat is probably the most important thing you can do, as long as you are able to keep functioning. And some of that, is a mental mindset. Kind of like running a marathon, you might want to keep giving up, but as long as you don't give up and you just keep functioning, the chances of surviving a combat is very high, compared to the person that just is just so fatigued they just stop blocking properly or moving properly, and you just finish them off. So combat and weapons and things don't work as they do in computer games. Not computer games, role-playing games. Well, and computer games. But why am I going into this? And I'll come to that point in a minute, because it is a very real thing that as a GM, it's always good to keep in the back of your head, and I'll come to in a minute. So, okay, what's the biggest problem about being a rules lawyer and sticking this box of rules in front of players? The biggest problem is this. Role-playing is essentially the GM creating a story, and he has an idea roughly where the story's going, but really all the way along he needs the players to think outside the box. Don't just walk the line I present you. If you walk the line I present you, it becomes boring for everybody. The fun thing about being a game master is you think you've created a path that the players are going to follow, and they go off over there, and then they do something that comes back and completely like dodges part of your whole thought of storyline. And as a GM, you must let that happen, and you must adapt to that, and it's a skill that takes time. Give the players freedom to do whatever they want to do to a certain degree, but let them think outside the box. The more they think outside the box, the better. They come to a combat, you think they've only got options A, B, and C to kill something, like, oh, it's resistant to fire, so they've only got cold they can use and some other stuff. Let them think outside the box. They might do something completely crazy, like drop the ceiling on them. I've had somebody drop a whole mountain on a vampire before to kill him. Brilliant. If they can think of a way to do something, then let them do it. But the moment you go, here's a box, and these rules confine the way you can think about how you can react and do things, and those rules stop real world physics and dynamics, is when you fail as a GM, and to be honest, as a game designer. And this is the hardest part, is it's impossible to reflect real world in a role-playing game from a designer's point of view. It's just too complicated. The rule system would just be, you would have to sit there and go, right, I'm going to write all the laws of physics, chemistry, biology, and everything else in my rule system so the GM understands what the real world is like, and then how to actually impart that in a tables that you can roll on, etc. That's just too much to ask. So the best thing you can do is go, right, I will follow the rules that are given to me in a role-playing game, but at all times, if I personally, as the GM, have the knowledge, whether it be, say, physics, chemistry, biology, anything, then that should try and take precedence, because if people can think when they're role playing the characters of how something would happen in real life and go, hang on, if I do this, this is going to happen, and if this happens, this will fall on him and crush him and do this, then brilliant, do it. That allows you to think outside the box. So you as the GM need to sit there and go, okay, would that really happen? And how do I offer the player a bonus or a negative, or how do I change the basic rule structure here to allow for this event to happen? And you might sit there and go, oh, hang on, these games have got magic in them and things. Well, look, okay, in a weird kind of way, magic is not magic. I did say that, yes, folks. A lot of things are still based on physics, whether they're thermodynamics or whatever. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, you cast a fireball in a small room. Guess what's going to happen? And you can just sit there and think, okay, right, what would really happen if somebody did one of these things? And different games cope with these things in different ways. But the most important thing is the GM to sit there and go, right, really? I'm not going to sit here and say, right, I'm going to be an archer and monster that's shooting at you, brother, and then you teleport instantly over there to do something, and I can still shoot you without having to reorientate, and you as the player don't have to reorientate when you arrive suddenly over there. There's things that you've just got to sit there and ask yourself as a GM. If you were in that position, would you really be able to do what your thing there in front of you says you're going to be able to do? And this is where you have to do things like, and we were going back to like plate mail and things. Now, if you ever watch any, I don't know, mixed martial arts and things, and you watch a bit of ground and pound, now one of the most effective things you can do with somebody that's on the ground is called your body weight. You can put your body weight on somebody when they're on the ground, and the more you can put your body weight on somebody, the more fatigued you're going to make them, because they're not just trying to resist your holds and grapples and stuff, but they have to do so with your body weight on top of them. Now, wearing full plate mail and having somebody potentially on full plate mail laying on top of you in a combat, yeah, you're just not going to move. those are situations where you just sit there and it's like, right, I can try and do these things and block. I know he's going to probably use a dagger to come up under the armpits, into the eye sockets, or whatever he's going to do. The person's got me on the floor. So I'll probably be spending all of my time trying to stop that dagger hand from doing that, hoping that somebody's going to come across and rescue me. Maybe if I've got opportunity to lock his dagger arm in some way and then maybe pull my own dagger and do something to him. But it's not going to be about, can I break this grapple and get up? So you have to try and think about, look, if a player says they're going to try and do something that is going to be effective in real life, but your little rule book says, oh, the rules say no, then cross the rules out and go, okay, the rules say right. But you as a player must understand, if you do something and we're going down that road, the monsters can do something too. And I have no issue with that, but everybody needs to understand real world is usually the best way to go. And when you add little house rules to make real world function better, then those house rules affect everybody, including the bad guys. So you sit there and go, okay, well, Tone, I'm not the best at understanding. I'm going to play Space Master. I don't know much about future tech. You go, right, okay, look, whatever system you're going to play, the rules are your starting point. If you can watch YouTube vids, there's loads of YouTube vids out there on how various weapons and armor and things function, how they're made, what they're really like to use. There's lots of videos on, say, biology and physics and chemistry, not necessarily to go to pass a degree, but to get some understanding of how do things actually function and get concepts in your head like, well, time is relative, it's not absolute, and just weird concepts where you sit there and go, oh, okay, I know I've got a better grasping on how certain things function. I can bring that to my game and add a little bit of real world knowledge to the game. And if your players are more knowledgeable than you in a subject, which certainly happens, fine. This brings me on to the last point I'm going to make on this video is, look, make mistakes. It's absolutely fine as a GM to make mistakes. 100%. I make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And if I'm in a combat and I make a mistake and the player goes, but ref, I've got so-and-so, I'll go, okay. I'll rewind if I have to in a combat. Go, well, I'm going to scrap last round's actions. We need to roll back because it's so important that what you've pointed out to carry on and ignore something that's blatantly my error is a bigger error. So let's always roll back to the least of the sizes of the errors. Now, there's always situations whereby you can't roll back. It would be not possible or without breaking the game. You disclosed information, basically. You can't undisclose and not tell people. So you have to just sit there as a GM and go, right, look, guys, I made an error. That was my fault. That's fine. We will run with it. We will carry on. However, in the future, when this certain thing happens, it'll happen differently. So next time you go to do so, don't use this as a point of reference. This is how it's going to actually function, because that's the correct way it should function, not the way I did it. And that could be anything. It could be a spell. Oh, he's cast a spell. I'm going to let that spell do so-and-so. And afterwards you sit there and think, hang on, that's broken. If I let that spell do this, and there's loads of spells that do that, especially in like classic Dungeons and Dragons. But classic Dungeons and Dragons, enlarge spell. Let's just enlarge everything and shrink it. No, I'm not even going to do that road because there's so many ways to abuse those spells. You just sit there and go, right, I know the rule might say this, but come on, guys, it's so broken, and you can abuse this rule and make it overpowered. It's not the original game designer's design to create a spell or a function that allows you to do the things you're trying to do with it. It's aimed at, look, this is like a level 1 spell or level, whatever it's going to be. It's not meant to have that much power. It's meant to be something to have a little bit of fun with. So I'm going to put a rule in that says, look, this is how it functions, and it's got limitations. It doesn't say in the rule system that there's limitations there, but it implies there's limitations there. And for rule balance and game balance, there has to be limitations to this function. It's like create water, what, endlessly, just like flood the world. You have to put boundaries on things and sit there and go, right, it doesn't say necessarily on some of these things there's a limitation, but you yourself as a ref have to go, right, there's going to be, I've made a decision on something, it was wrong, I can see it can be abused, I'm now rolling back my mistake and saying we're putting limitations on something, or I put a limitation on something I shouldn't have. I've realized I've actually nerfed your ability to the point whereby it's no point you taking your ability, so we're going to remove my decision. I made a mistake. And in fact, I might add something better to it. So yeah, this is just a quick chat through Pearls of Wisdom and rules, lawyers, and about being a GM, and just trying to give you guys a little bit of my 40 years of GMing. Oh my god, I'm old. 40 years of GMing experience to you guys. I'm still learning. I'm learning all the time. And any GM that's still learning is probably sat there still watching this going, yeah, it's just a constant state of learning. It never ends. And that's fine. So thank you for watching this. I hope it was helpful to you and give you a little bit of understanding that nobody has a golden pen. You can have a golden pen. Don't be afraid to change anything you want. I know you've bought a game of Cluedo. Add some rooms, add some changes. Just understand the balance. Understand what is it you're causing, how is it going to work, how can it be abused, and test it out. And then tweak it if you have to. But game design is a great thing to go into. It's a very fulfilling hobby and it can be a profession. And the first step on being a game designer is throwing the rules out the window. Thank you very much, everybody, and bye.